Take a moment and think about a dream you've given up on. Maybe it was starting a business. Maybe it was becoming an artist, a writer, a creator, or building a life you truly wanted. Now ask yourself, did you stop because the dream was impossible? Or did you stop because you were afraid? Afraid of failure. Afraid of uncertainty. Afraid of what other people might think. Most of us have experienced that feeling. And that's exactly why The Alchemist continues to resonate with millions of people decades after it was first published. At its heart, this is not a story about treasure. It's not even a story about adventure. It's a story about the conflict every human being faces at some point in life. The choice between staying where it's safe or stepping into the unknown in pursuit of something meaningful. The book follows a young shepherd named Santiago, who repeatedly dreams of a treasure waiting for him near the pyramids of Egypt. Most people would dismiss such a dream. Santiago chooses to follow it. That decision takes him on an extraordinary journey filled with setbacks, unexpected mentors, powerful lessons, and discoveries that force him to question everything he thought he knew about success and happiness. But the real reason this story has survived for generations is simple. In Santiago, we see ourselves. His fears are our fears. His doubts are our doubts. And his search for treasure reflects a deeper search that many of us are still on, the search for purpose. So in this video, we'll break down the complete story of The Alchemist, uncover its hidden symbolism, and explore the life-changing lessons that have inspired readers across the world to pursue their own personal legend. But before we follow Santiago on his remarkable journey, it's worth understanding why this story has touched so many people across the world. First published in 1988, The Alchemist, written by Paulo Coehlo, is one of the most widely read novels of all time. It has been translated into dozens of languages and has inspired millions of readers from different cultures, backgrounds, and generations. What's remarkable is that the story itself is surprisingly simple. There are no complex plot twists, no epic battles, no extraordinary superpowers. At first glance, it's just the story of a young shepherd traveling in search of treasure. Yet beneath that simple adventure lies a powerful message that has resonated with people for decades. At the heart of the book is a concept called the personal legend. According to the story, every person comes into this world with a unique purpose, a dream, a calling, or a path they are meant to follow. As children, we're often deeply connected to that purpose. We dream freely, believe anything is possible, and imagine a future without limits. But as we grow older, something changes. Fear begins to creep in. Responsibilities increase. The opinions of others start to matter. And little by little, many people abandon the dreams that once excited them. The Alchemist asks a simple but uncomfortable question. What if the life you've always wanted is waiting on the other side of the fears you've been avoiding? To explore that question, Paulo Coehlo introduces us to a young shepherd named Santiago, a boy who seems perfectly content with his life, but who is about to experience a dream that will change everything. And it all begins beneath the ruins of an old church in the Spanish countryside. The church had long been abandoned. Its roof had partially collapsed, and through the opening, the branches of a giant sycamore tree stretched toward the sky. It wasn't the kind of place most people would choose to spend the night, but for Santiago, it was perfect. As a shepherd, his life was simple. Each day, he traveled across the rolling hills of Andalusia with his flock of sheep, moving from one pasture to another in search of fresh grass and water. To an outsider, his life might have seemed ordinary, but Santiago didn't see it that way. He loved the freedom it gave him. Unlike many people his age, he wasn't tied to one place. He could travel wherever he wanted, meet new people, and discover new towns. His sheep were his companions, and the open road was his home. In many ways, Santiago was already living a life that others might envy. Yet deep inside, there was a part of him that wanted something more. He couldn't quite explain it. It was simply a feeling, a quiet sense that a greater adventure was waiting somewhere beyond the horizon. Then one night, while sleeping beneath the sycamore tree inside the abandoned church, Santiago had a dream. A strange dream. In the dream, a child appeared and took him by the hand. The child led him across distant lands, all the way to the Great Pyramids of Egypt. There, the child pointed toward a hidden treasure buried near the pyramids. Just as Santiago was about to learn the exact location of the treasure, he suddenly woke up. The dream ended. At first, he dismissed it. After all, people have strange dreams all the time. But a few days later, the exact same dream returned. Every detail was identical. The same child, the same journey, the same treasure. And once again, he woke up before discovering where it was hidden. Now Santiago could no longer ignore it.
Was it simply a coincidence? A trick of the mind? Or was the dream trying to tell him something?
Most people would have forgotten about it and moved on with their lives. But Santiago couldn't. The dream lingered in his thoughts wherever he went, and the more he thought about it, the more curious he became. Without realizing it, a single question had begun to change the course of his life.
What if the dream was real?
Searching for answers, Santiago decides to visit a dream interpreter. He hopes she'll simply explain the meaning of his strange vision. Instead, her words make the mystery even deeper. The woman listens carefully as Santiago describes the recurring dream, the child, the pyramids, and the hidden treasure. When he finishes, she remains silent for a moment. Then she tells him something unexpected. According to her,
the dream is not a symbol, it is a message. The treasure near the pyramids is real, and Santiago should go there and find it.
Santiago is skeptical. The answer sounds too simple, too unbelievable. Yet before he leaves, the woman asks for something unusual. Instead of charging money up front, she requests 1/10 of the treasure if he ever finds it. The arrangement feels strange, but Santiago agrees and leaves. Instead of feeling relieved, he feels more confused than ever. As he walks through the town, he begins wondering whether he should simply forget about the entire thing. After all, he already has a good life. He has his sheep, his freedom, his routine.
Why risk everything for a dream that might not even be real?
As Santiago sits in a town square thinking about these questions, an old man approaches him. At first, the stranger seems ordinary, but within minutes, the conversation takes an unexpected turn. The old man somehow knows things about Santiago's life that no stranger should know. He knows about the sheep, he knows about the recurring dream, and most surprisingly, he seems to understand the doubts Santiago is struggling with. Then the old man introduces himself as Melchizedek, the king of Salem. The title sounds impossible, yet there is something about him that commands attention. As they continue talking, the king shares an idea that becomes the foundation of the entire book. He tells Santiago that every person has what he calls a personal legend. He says,
"A personal legend is the reason you are here. It is your deepest desire, your true calling, the thing you were meant to accomplish in life." According to the king, when we are young, we instinctively know what our personal legend is. We dream boldly. We believe in possibilities. But as we grow older, fear begins to take control. People tell us what we can and cannot do. Past failures discourage us. The desire for safety becomes stronger than the desire for adventure. And little by little, we abandon the dreams that once inspired us. When you truly want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it.
It's a beautiful thought, but it's also a challenging one, because if that's true, then Santiago can no longer pretend the dream doesn't matter. The king explains that the treasure is connected to Santiago's personal legend. Following the dream isn't really about finding gold. It's about becoming the person he is meant to be. Before leaving, the king asks Santiago for a price.
If he truly wants to pursue his destiny, he must give away 1/10 of his flock of sheep.
The request forces Santiago to make a decision. For the first time, the dream requires a sacrifice. Suddenly, it isn't just a fantasy anymore. It's a choice. A choice between the comfort of the life he already knows and the uncertainty of a journey that could change everything. For many people, this is where the story would end. Most would choose safety. Most would convince themselves that their dream can wait. But Santiago makes a different decision. And with that decision, his ordinary life comes to an end. Determined to follow the signs, Santiago sells his sheep and prepares for the adventure of a lifetime. He believes he's taking the first step toward his treasure. What he doesn't realize is that before reaching Egypt, he's about to lose everything he owns. For the first time in his life, Santiago leaves behind the familiar landscapes of Spain and crosses the narrow sea that separates Europe from Africa. Soon, he arrives in Tangier, a bustling city unlike anything he has ever seen. The streets are crowded, the language is unfamiliar, the customs are different. Suddenly, Santiago realizes something important. Adventure feels exciting when it's far away. But once you're standing in the middle of the unknown, excitement can quickly turn into fear. For the first time since beginning his journey, doubt begins to creep into his mind.
Did he make a mistake? Was leaving his old life really the right decision?
Trying to stay focused on his goal, Santiago enters a local cafe. There, he meets a young man who speaks his language. Relieved to finally find someone he can communicate with, Santiago explains his dream and tells him about the treasure near the pyramids. The young man offers to help. He claims he knows the area and can guide Santiago toward his destination. At first, everything seemed to be working out perfectly. It feels as though the universe is rewarding Santiago for having the courage to take action. But then, in a crowded marketplace, everything changes. In a matter of moments, the young man disappears, and with him goes all of Santiago's money, every coin, every possession, everything he received from selling his sheep. Gone. Just like that. Santiago stands alone in a foreign country with nothing. No friends, no resources, no clear way forward. The dream that once seemed exciting now feels foolish. The treasure feels impossibly far away. And for the first time, Santiago seriously considers giving up. It's a moment many of us know well. Not necessarily in a foreign marketplace, but in life. We take a risk. We start a business, launch a project, follow a dream, and almost immediately, something goes wrong. The first obstacle appears. The first failure arrives. And a question begins to echo in his mind.
Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should go back.
Santiago faces exactly that question. He could return home. He could spend the rest of his life regretting the journey. Or he could keep moving forward, despite having no guarantee of success. As he sits alone, overwhelmed by disappointment, he remembers something the old king told him. The journey toward a personal legend is never easy. Challenges are not signs that you're on the wrong path. They're part of the path itself. Slowly, Santiago makes a decision. He refuses to quit. He refuses to let one setback define the rest of his story. Instead of returning home, he chooses to stay and rebuild his life from nothing. It's a decision that seems small in the moment, but looking back, it may be the most important decision he ever makes. Because the treasure he seeks is still far away, and the lessons he is about to learn will prove far more valuable than the money he lost. With no money and nowhere to go, Santiago begins searching for work. Hungry, exhausted, and uncertain about what comes next, he wanders through the streets of Tangier looking for any opportunity to survive. That's when he notices a small crystal shop sitting on top of a hill. The store is quiet. Few customers enter. The crystal pieces displayed in the windows are covered with dust. Even from a distance, Santiago can sense that the business is struggling. Wanting to earn enough money for food, he approaches the owner and offers to clean some of the crystal items in exchange for a meal. The merchant agrees. Santiago carefully polishes the dusty crystal, restoring its shine. Almost immediately, something unexpected happens. Two customers walk into the shop and make purchases. The merchant is surprised, and before long, he offers Santiago a job. At first, Santiago accepts only because he needs money. His original plan is simple. Work for a short time, earn enough to buy sheep, return to Spain, forget the treasure, forget the pyramids, forget the dream. But as the weeks pass, something begins to change. Santiago starts noticing opportunities to improve the business. He suggests displaying crystal outside the shop where passing customers can see it. The merchant hesitates. He dislikes change. He prefers routine. Still, he reluctantly agrees. The idea works. Sales increase. Encouraged by the results, Santiago proposes even more improvements. One day, he suggests serving tea in crystal glasses. The merchant is shocked. The idea seems risky, unnecessary. But once again, Santiago's instincts prove correct. Customers are drawn to the unique experience, and business begins growing faster than ever before. For the first time in years, the crystal shop is thriving. And yet, despite the success, something about the merchant feels deeply sad. The reason becomes clear as Santiago gets to know him better. Many years earlier, the merchant had his own dream. He dreamed of traveling to Mecca, the holy city that many Muslims hope to visit at least once in their lives. For decades, he talked about making the journey. He planned for it, imagined it, promised himself he would go one day. But one day never came. Instead, he continued running the shop, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting until conditions were better, waiting until he felt ready. Years turned into decades, and the dream remained exactly where it started, only in his imagination. As Santiago listens to the merchant's story, he begins to understand something important. The merchant isn't afraid of failing, he's afraid of succeeding. Because if he actually fulfilled his dream, he would lose the thing that has been giving his life hope for all these years. So he chooses to keep dreaming rather than take action. It's a powerful contrast. Both Santiago and the merchant have dreams. The difference is that one is willing to risk uncertainty. The other has become trapped by comfort. And perhaps that's one of the book's most uncomfortable truths. Many people don't abandon their dreams because they lack talent. They abandon them because comfort slowly becomes more important than growth. Months pass. The crystal shop becomes more successful than ever. Eventually, Santiago earns enough money to buy an even larger flock of sheep than the one he originally sold. At this moment, he faces another major decision. He now has everything he needs to return home. He can walk away from the dream, go back to his old life, and no one would blame him. In fact, it would probably seem like the sensible choice. But deep inside, Santiago knows something has changed. The dream still calls to him. The pyramids still wait. And for the second time in his journey, he must choose between comfort and destiny. This time, the choice is even harder, because now comfort is within reach. Standing at a crossroads once again, Santiago realizes that returning home would be easier, but not more fulfilling. He chooses the unknown. With renewed determination, Santiago leaves the crystal shop behind and joins a caravan traveling across the Sahara Desert toward Egypt. The journey ahead is long and dangerous. Weeks of travel, endless stretches of sand, unpredictable conditions, and the constant threat of tribal conflicts that can erupt without warning. But unlike his first journey to Tangier, Santiago is no longer the same person. He has learned that setbacks are survivable. He has learned that growth often begins where comfort ends. And most importantly, he has learned to pay attention to opportunities that others overlook. As the caravan prepares to leave, Santiago meets a traveler known simply as the Englishman. Unlike Santiago, the Englishman is not searching for treasure. He is searching for knowledge. For years, he has studied books about alchemy, the ancient practice of transforming ordinary metals into gold and discovering the deepest secrets of life. His luggage is filled with heavy books. His mind is filled with theories. And his goal is to find a legendary master known as the ALCHEMIST. He speaks about a universal language that connects all things. He talks about signs and omens. He explains that the world itself is constantly communicating with those who are willing to listen. During their conversations, the Englishman introduces Santiago to ideas that seem strange and mysterious. At first, Santiago struggles to understand these concepts. But as the caravan slowly moves through the desert, he begins noticing something interesting. The desert communicates differently than books. There are no pages, no lectures, no complicated explanations. Yet every day seems to contain lessons. The movement of the wind, the behavior of animals, the silence of the endless sand. Everything appears connected in ways he never noticed before. This creates a fascinating contrast between Santiago and the Englishman. The Englishman tries to understand the world through reading. Santiago learns by observing and experiencing. Neither approach is completely wrong, but the book quietly suggests that some truths can only be discovered through direct experience. After all, you can read hundreds of books about courage, but until you face fear yourself, you don't truly understand it. You can study love for years, but until you experience it, it remains only an idea. And you can learn about purpose from countless teachers, but eventually, you must walk your own path. As the days pass, Santiago becomes increasingly aware of what the old king called omens, small signs, unexpected encounters, moments that seem random but somehow feel meaningful. The more attention he pays, the more connected he feels to the world around him. It's as though the journey itself is teaching him, not through words, but through experience. Meanwhile, tension begins building throughout the desert. Rumors spread among travelers. Tribal wars are breaking out across the region. Danger lies ahead. The caravan leaders become more cautious. Conversations grow quieter. The atmosphere becomes tense. For the first time, Santiago realizes that reaching the pyramids is not guaranteed. The desert doesn't care about dreams. It doesn't care about plans. One mistake can change everything. Yet strangely, Santiago feels calmer than before. Instead of worrying constantly about the future, he begins focusing on the present moment. One step, one day, one lesson at a time. Without realizing it, he is becoming exactly the kind of person this journey was meant to create. And soon, the desert is about to teach him its most powerful lesson yet. Because ahead lies an oasis unlike any place Santiago has ever seen. A place where he will meet someone who challenges his understanding of destiny, purpose, and love itself. Her name is Fatima. After weeks surrounded by endless sand, the caravan finally reaches a thriving oasis. For most travelers, it's simply a place to rest before continuing their journey. For Santiago, it becomes something much more. The oasis feels almost magical. Thousands of palm trees rise from the desert floor. Fresh water flows freely. Families live peacefully behind its protective boundaries. After the silence and hardship of the desert, the oasis feels like a different world. And it is here that Santiago's journey takes an unexpected turn. One day, while visiting a well, he sees a young woman gathering water. Her name is Fatima. The moment their eyes meet, something changes. For Santiago, it feels as though time briefly stops. Until this point, his journey has been about treasure, omens, and destiny. Now, suddenly, his heart is moving in a completely different direction. Over the following days, Santiago finds reasons to return to the well again and again. They talk, they learn about each other, and before long, he realizes he has fallen deeply in love. For the first time since leaving Spain, the treasure near the pyramids no longer feels like the most important thing in his life. Fatima does. And that's where Santiago faces one of the greatest dilemmas of his journey.
If I stay in the oasis, I can build a happy life. I can be with the woman I love. I can avoid the dangers of the desert. I can stop chasing uncertainty. So why continue? Why risk everything again? Why leave behind happiness for a treasure that might not even exist?
It's a question that forces Santiago to reconsider everything he believes about destiny. Many stories would present love and purpose as opposing forces. Choose one and sacrifice the other. But The Alchemist offers a very different perspective. When Santiago shares his fears with Fatima, he expects her to ask him to stay. Instead, she says something remarkable. She tells him that if she is truly part of his destiny, he will return. She doesn't ask him to abandon his dream. She encourages him to pursue it. Because she understands something many people never do. Love that demands the death of your purpose isn't love. Real love strengthens your purpose. Real love wants to see you become the person you're capable of becoming. It's one of the most powerful messages in the entire book. Sometimes we assume that pursuing our dreams means losing the people we care about. Sometimes we believe that choosing growth requires sacrificing relationships. But Fatima represents a different possibility. A love that supports growth rather than restricting it. a love rooted in trust rather than fear. As Santiago struggles with this decision, another extraordinary event occurs. While observing the desert, he notices a vision. He sees two hawks fighting in the sky. For a brief moment, the image transforms into something else, an army attacking the oasis. The vision feels so real that Santiago cannot ignore it. Following his instincts, he warns the leaders of the oasis. Most people would dismiss such a claim. After all, how could a young traveler predict an attack based on birds in the sky? Yet the leaders take his warning seriously. And when the attack eventually comes, the oasis is prepared. The danger is defeated. Lives are saved. Suddenly, Santiago realizes that his ability to read omens is becoming stronger. The world is speaking, and for the first time, he is beginning to understand its language. His actions attract attention, not just from the leaders of the oasis, but from someone far more mysterious. Someone the Englishman has spent years searching for. Someone whose wisdom is said to be beyond ordinary understanding. The alchemist has spent years studying the secrets of transformation. But when he meets Santiago, he isn't interested in teaching formulas or theories. Instead, he begins teaching something far more valuable: the art of understanding yourself. Unlike the Englishman, who searches for answers in books, the alchemist seems to find wisdom everywhere. In the desert, in silence, in ordinary moments that most people overlook. And from the very beginning, it's clear that his lessons will not be easy. The alchemist quickly recognizes something that Santiago himself is only beginning to understand. Santiago has come a long way. He has crossed continents, survived loss, learned from strangers, found love, and discovered how to read the signs around him. But despite all of that, one obstacle still remains: fear. Not fear of failure, not fear of danger, but fear of what lies ahead. Because the closer Santiago gets to his treasure, the more he realizes that reaching it will require complete trust in the unknown. The alchemist explains that this fear is natural. In fact, he says something that becomes one of the most memorable ideas in the entire story. The fear of suffering is often worse than suffering itself. Think about how often that happens in our own lives. We spend weeks worrying about a difficult conversation, months worrying about a decision, years worrying about a dream we never pursue. The imagined pain becomes larger than the reality, and because of that, we remain stuck. The alchemist wants Santiago to understand that fear isn't something to eliminate, it's something to move through. As they continue traveling together across the desert, the lessons become increasingly challenging. The alchemist constantly pushes Santiago to trust his heart, not because the heart is always comfortable, but because it often knows things the mind refuses to accept. Santiago learns that his heart speaks in different ways, sometimes through excitement, sometimes through intuition, sometimes through a quiet feeling that a particular path is right. The challenge is learning to listen. Most people spend so much time listening to doubt, criticism, and fear that they stop hearing their own inner voice. The alchemist teaches the opposite.
Listen carefully. Pay attention. Trust what your soul is trying to tell you.
At one point, their journey takes an especially dangerous turn. They are captured by warriors who suspect them of being spies. The situation is serious. The possibility of death becomes very real. To save their lives, the alchemist makes an astonishing claim. He tells the warriors,
Santiago can transform himself into the wind.
The warriors laugh. Santiago is shocked. Transform into the wind? How is that even possible? Yet the alchemist remains calm. He has deliberately placed Santiago in a situation where logic alone cannot help him. Now Santiago must rely on everything he has learned throughout the journey. His connection to the desert, his understanding of the world, his faith in something greater than himself. As the deadline approaches, Santiago begins communicating with the elements around him. First, the desert, then the wind, then the sun, and finally, the force that connects all creation. Whether this scene is interpreted literally or symbolically, its message is powerful. The transformation isn't really about becoming the wind. It's about discovering what becomes possible when fear no longer controls you. For most of the story, Santiago has been searching for treasure in the outside world. But now something deeper is happening. He is discovering strength he never knew existed within himself. And that's precisely what the alchemist wanted him to learn. Because the greatest treasures are rarely found by the same person who began the journey. The journey changes them, transforms them, prepares them. By the time Santiago and the alchemist finally part ways, Santiago is no longer the uncertain shepherd who slept beneath an abandoned church in Spain. He has become someone capable of facing the unknown with courage. And now, after everything he has endured, only one final destination remains: the pyramids. The place where the dream first pointed him. The place where he believes his treasure awaits. But the greatest surprise of his journey is still ahead. After years of searching, countless setbacks, and lessons learned across an entire continent, Santiago finally stands before the pyramids of Egypt. The moment he has dreamed about for so long has finally arrived. But destiny has one final lesson left to teach him. As Santiago gazes up at the massive pyramids, he is overwhelmed. For years, they existed only in his imagination. A distant destination, a symbol of hope, a reason to keep moving forward whenever doubt threatened to pull him back. And now, they stand before him. Real, magnificent, silent. For a moment, Santiago simply watches. The journey flashes through his mind. His sheep in Spain, the old king, the robbery in Tangier, the crystal merchant, the desert, Fatima, the alchemist. Every challenge, every lesson, every sacrifice, all of it has led to this moment. Certain that the treasure must be nearby, Santiago begins digging. Hour after hour, he works beneath the stars, driven by the belief that he is finally about to uncover the reward he has spent years pursuing. But then, something unexpected happens. A group of men appears. At first, Santiago assumes they are travelers. Instead, they attack him. They steal what little he has left and demand to know why he is digging in the middle of the desert. Desperate and exhausted, Santiago tells them the truth. He explains the recurring dream, the treasure, the journey, the pyramids, the years spent chasing a vision that brought him across the world. The men burst into laughter. To them, the story sounds ridiculous. One of the men mocks him and says,
I too once had a dream about a treasure hidden in Spain. According to the dream, the treasure was buried beneath a sycamore tree growing inside the ruins of an old church. But unlike you, I was never foolish enough to cross a continent chasing a dream.
The men leave, and for a moment, Santiago lies there in stunned silence. Then, something extraordinary happens. He realizes the truth. The church, the sycamore tree, the abandoned building, the exact place where his journey began. The treasure was never buried near the pyramids. It was buried back in Spain, near the very spot where he first had the dream. At first glance, this ending seems almost cruel. After everything Santiago endured, why send him all the way across the world only to discover that the treasure was near home? But that's precisely the point. Without the journey, he would never have understood the value of the treasure. Without the desert, he would never have learned courage. Without loss, he would never have learned resilience. Without Fatima, he would never have understood love. Without the alchemist, he would never have learned to trust himself. The treasure may have been waiting in Spain, but the person capable of finding it had to be created through the journey. Santiago returns home, back across the desert, back across the sea, back to the abandoned church where everything started. Beneath the roots of the sycamore tree, he begins digging once again. This time, he finds it. A chest filled with gold, jewels, and riches beyond anything he imagined. The treasure is real. But by now, something has changed. The gold matters less than it once would have, because Santiago understands what the journey has truly given him. The treasure was never only about wealth. It was about transformation. It was about becoming the person his dream required him to become. And with that realization, he prepares to return to the oasis, to Fatima, to to the next chapter of his life. His search is finally over. But the lesson of his journey will continue long after the treasure is found. At first, The Alchemist appears to be a simple story about a shepherd searching for treasure. But beneath that adventure lies a deeper message, one that explains why this book continues to resonate with millions of readers around the world. Because in many ways, Santiago's journey is our journey. The characters, places, and events in the story aren't just part of a plot, they're symbols, reflections of experiences that many of us face throughout our lives. Let's begin with the idea that sits at the center of the entire book, the personal legend. In the story, a personal legend represents your deepest purpose, the thing you feel called to do, the dream that continues pulling at your attention no matter how many times you try to ignore it. For Santiago, that calling was the treasure. For someone else, it might be building a business, creating art, writing a book, helping others, or becoming the person they've always wanted to be. The specific dream isn't important. What matters is the willingness to pursue it. Then there's the treasure itself. Interestingly, the treasure isn't what transforms Santiago. The journey does. And that's a lesson many people discover in real life. We often believe happiness exists at some future destination, a promotion, a relationship, a goal, a milestone. But when we finally reach those things, we realize that the most valuable part wasn't the achievement itself. It was who we became while pursuing it. The treasure represents the reward, but the journey represents the transformation. The desert carries its own symbolism as well. Throughout the story, the desert is filled with uncertainty, danger, isolation, and challenges. In many ways, it represents the difficult periods we all encounter. The moments when progress feels slow, the moments when the future isn't clear, the moments when giving up seems easier than moving forward. Yet it is within the desert that Santiago experiences his greatest growth. The lesson is simple but powerful. Growth rarely happens in comfort. It happens when we are challenged, when we are tested, when we continue despite uncertainty. The crystal merchant represents another important symbol, perhaps one of the most relatable in the entire book. Unlike Santiago, the merchant has stopped pursuing his dream. Not because he lacks ability, not because opportunity never appeared, but because fear gradually became stronger than hope. He keeps his dream alive in his imagination while avoiding the risks required to make it real. Many readers see themselves in the merchant, not because they want to, but because they recognize how easy it is to postpone meaningful goals while convincing ourselves we'll pursue them someday. Then there is Fatima. Far from being just a romantic character, Fatima represents a powerful idea about love. The book suggests that genuine love does not demand that we abandon our purpose. Instead, it supports our growth. It encourages us to become the fullest version of ourselves. And finally, there is the alchemist himself. More than a teacher, he represents wisdom, the voice that reminds us to trust ourselves, to pay attention to intuition, to stop allowing fear to make every important decision. Throughout the story, the alchemist repeatedly guides Santiago back towards something many of us forget. The answers we seek are often closer than we think, not because the journey is unnecessary, but because the journey helps us see what was there all along. And perhaps that is the deepest message of the entire book. The treasure was buried near the place where Santiago's story began, yet he still needed to cross deserts, face setbacks, and transform himself before he could find it. Sometimes life works the same way. The thing we're searching for may not be as far away as we imagine, but we often need the journey to become capable of recognizing it. And that's why The Alchemist continues to inspire readers decades after it was written. It's not really a story about treasure. It's a story about possibility. It's a reminder that the dreams we ignore don't disappear. They wait, quietly, patiently, for the day we decide to follow them. So, after exploring Santiago's incredible journey and the deeper meaning behind it, what practical lessons can we take into our own lives? Here are 5 powerful ideas that The Alchemist leaves us with. The first lesson is simple, but not easy. Follow the dream that keeps calling you. Most people don't regret the risks they took. They regret the opportunities they never pursued, the ideas they never acted on, the goals they kept postponing, the version of themselves they never allowed to become. Santiago's journey began the moment he stopped ignoring that inner calling. And perhaps the same is true for us. The second lesson is that fear is often a bigger obstacle than failure. Throughout the story, Santiago faces uncertainty, loss, rejection, and danger. Yet the thing that threatens him most is not failure itself. It's the fear of failure. How many opportunities have we missed because we imagined the worst possible outcome before even trying? The Alchemist reminds us that fear grows strongest when we stand still. Action is often the thing that weakens it. The third lesson is that growth requires discomfort. Every meaningful transformation in Santiago's life happens outside his comfort zone. Leaving Spain, losing his money, crossing the desert, trusting the unknown. None of it was easy, but none of it would have happened if he had chosen comfort over growth. The same principle applies to our own lives. The life we want often exists just beyond the situations we'd rather avoid. The fourth lesson is to trust your own journey. One of the most powerful aspects of Santiago's story is that nobody could walk the path for him. People offered guidance, teachers shared wisdom, but ultimately, he had to make his own choices. He had to learn his own lessons, and he had to discover his own treasure. Sometimes we spend so much time comparing our progress to others that we forget we're following different paths. Your timeline is not someone else's timeline. Your journey is not someone else's journey. The final lesson may be the most important of all. The treasure is never just the destination. It's the person you become along the way. By the time Santiago finds the gold, he is no longer the same shepherd who dreamed beneath an abandoned church. He has become wiser, braver, more resilient, more aware of who he truly is. And perhaps that's the real treasure hidden inside every meaningful pursuit. Not what it gives us, but what it makes of us. And maybe that's why this story continues to resonate with so many people around the world. Because at some point, all of us have stood where Santiago stood. Caught between comfort and possibility. Between fear and faith. Between the life we know and the life we secretly dream about. The Alchemist doesn't promise that following your dreams will be easy. It doesn't guarantee success, but it offers a powerful reminder. A dream becomes meaningful the moment you decide it's worth pursuing. So, as you finish this story, take a moment to ask yourself a simple question. What is the dream you've been postponing? What is the goal, passion, or calling that continues to return to your thoughts? And if Santiago's journey teaches us anything, it's this. The first step may be uncertain. The road may be difficult. But the adventure begins the moment you choose to start. Because somewhere between who you are today and who you're capable of becoming, your own treasure is waiting. Maybe it's a dream you've delayed, a goal you've doubted, or a path you've been afraid to follow. Whatever it is, the story of Santiago reminds us that the greatest risk isn't failure. It's spending a lifetime wondering what might have happened if we had the courage to begin. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this summary and would like to see more books broken down into powerful stories, life lessons, and timeless ideas, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. What is your personal legend? What dream are you ready to start pursuing? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep following your own personal legend.